Welcome to another episode of SJS Recommends. Today we will return to Hirokazu Koreeda's work with his film from 2013 called Like Father, Like Son that we both have in this family values set. I have the reversible art and Altaz has the kind of normal art there. I really like both of these. I think they are really nice, especially if they were really nice in the hardbox version, but okay, we couldn't get that because we both got it before after that was out of print. So. But it's still the most important thing to have these great films, of course, because the other two films here are good too. Yeah. But anyway, I'll give a short introduction. So this was the first Koreeda film I ever watched. It was quite a long time ago. It was even before I moved to London, so it was like early 2017 or something, just when I had gotten into Japanese cinema and I didn't know anything about Koreeda, and I had watched maybe few Kurosawa films and Tokyo Story at that point, so I was very Vulgarian when it came to Japanese cinema. But I was absolutely blown away by this film back then. Then I think last year I watched it for the second time, and now for the third time, and every time it just touches me very deeply. And even though it has some sadder moments in it, I think this is kind of like a comfort movie for me because I just love watching these slice of life family dramas that have like a simple, interesting plot, but great characters and lots of relatable stuff and great aesthetic as well. And yeah, I think this is my favorite Koreeda film. It just hits the feels more than the others. But again, like I've said on my channel many times, he's one of my favorite directors. I love many of his films and I don't dislike any of them. And this, I think, would be a pretty good introduction to Koreeda. I'm glad that it was the first one I watched because it made me a long-time fan. So, yeah. And now I could give the plot synopsis really briefly. I mean, I've said this plot synopsis on my channel probably like 10 times. But yeah, so it's about two families. One of them is kind of upper middle class. One is working class. Or I guess are they even working class because the guy doesn't even work. But anyway, but yeah, their babies got switched at birth in the hospital, and the families have lived with the wrong child for I think five years. Then the hospital calls them and says to them that you need to come here, and then they find out that the babies were switched at birth. And then after that, we of course have these conflicts that whether the baby should be switched back or what should they do. So that's basically the plot. So now we'll have a small spoiler-free discussion, but before that I'm going to ask Altaz, what did you think about this film?
I could watch Koreeda films about daddy issues, which the two Koreeda films I've seen are just about daddy issues all day long. I mean, it's such a great film. There's nothing more I can say that it's just a great film. It's a great film. It's Koreeda magic again, so loved it. Yeah, looking
And I
forward to
guess as
talking about it.
yeah, and I guess as he started kind of in the mid 90s with his feature film, you could say that this is like a mid-period film, especially as he's still continuing to make films probably for several years to come. So, but I think it's very similar to what has come before. We of course talked about Still Walking back in May, I think, or was it April? But that was from 2008 or 7, I think. So there hasn't been many years between those films, and of course they have many similar things, like you said, the daddy issues and family trauma, family dynamics, although in a very different way, because Still Walking is almost entirely in that one house, but this obviously kind of goes from place to place, and it has a bit more plot than Still Walking has, but thematically it has lots of the same things of like how to be a parent and what makes a family and what makes a family work and things like that. Obviously, we will get more in depth to that later on, but now we could talk about how or who could like this film. So I think this is a very accessible film. Anybody who likes dramas, relationship films, family films, and Japanese aesthetic and things like that. I think you people would love this film, and I also often hear from people who are fathers themselves that they really connected to this film. I think Daisuke, for example, has said that, and also I think Chris Mohan has said that, and many other people also, that yeah, it makes you think about your own family, your own life, and how you could be a better family member, how you could maybe understand your family members better, and it also makes you think that is your closest family or like actual blood family, or maybe some of your friends or some people like that could be your family. And of course, like queer people like me, we can often like really relate to this idea of having a family who aren't related to you, because we often have troubles with our blood families and then we have to find families elsewhere. So there's a lot of things that you can relate to here, and I think almost everyone could relate to this film.
Yeah, everyone. Absolutely. I think the only challenge anyone would have with this film is if they don't want to read subtitles. That's all I can say. But I don't. I see this as a film for everybody, uh, because if you, like you said, you like dramas, and if you like those kind of great family dramas, even coming out of Hollywood, out of classical Hollywood. I mean, it's all within that tradition. It's all within that wonderful style, um, and yeah, it's fantastic. It's for everybody. I think everyone should watch it. In my view, I don't see any limitation. And if you are hesitant about subtitles, the great thing about Quarita films is they're not dialogue heavy. So it's not like you're going to have to read subtitles very quickly, like in sometimes in certain French films, French New Wave films. It's a lot about dialogue because they're discussing philosophy and ideas and stuff like that. So you might have to read a bit quicker. Here, you're not rushed because just the way the dialogue is, the screenplay is in Quarita films. So I think another perfectly good place to even start exploring cinema of other language. So one, yeah, definitely for everybody. It's for everybody.
And I think this film is a masterclass in acting,
Oh
both the
yes.
child performances but also the adults. And my favorite is the father of the middle class family. I think his name is Ryota. He's an
Mm.
architect and quite stuck up and not very emotionally distant, not the best father. But for some reason, since I first watched this film, I've really been attracted to his character, and he's been always my favorite thing about this film, even though I don't necessarily like him as a person, but there's something in his performance and stuff that really draws me in and makes me interested in his character. And as the movie goes along, of course, we don't go into spoilers yet, but you start understanding his character more and more the more the film progresses. And even though you maybe don't like him for the most of the film, you start understanding why he is the way he is later on. And we could also already mention that the music is great. It has some like Bach piano piece, like really famous stuff that you've certainly heard in a maybe TV commercial or somewhere, even if you don't listen to classical music. And yeah, it's just very subtle film as well. Very peaceful film that you can just enjoy and watch. Like I watched this a Thursday morning, and I think it's like a perfect morning film when you are kind of slowly waking up and getting ready to kind of for the day and stuff. And it's just like a good movie for that because it's so peaceful, but also activates your brain as it has lots of themes and lots of subtle conflict in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It would be a great morning film. I watched it kind of late afternoon, so I enjoyed that too. You can sit there with your coffee, with your tea, and then what I like about it is a kind of Korean films give you great rest, and I don't mean because they're boring or anything like that, because you're going on a journey, you kind of just let go and you surrender, and you're sitting there whatever time with your tea, and you just go on this journey, and like you said, yeah, you come out refreshed because it's got all these elements. He has a certain style with the tone, the sound design that's very calming, but then yes, great music, the way the dialogue is, and he is an absolutely amazing with acting from what I've seen so far. I know it's limited, but yeah, he really allows or helps actors. I don't know how the collaborative process is, but just you just see amazing performances. It's just like, I also feel like in Hamaguchi films, there's certain directors, they're directors, and they really get like just the very best out of their actors, and they just cast their films are cast to like perfection, and to get the kind of child performances, it's unbelievable. I was like, how it's to see that kind of child performance. It's incredible. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what his process is, but it's magical. It's magic. It's Koreeda magic.
And both of the main children, Keita, who has grown up with the richer family, and then Ruisei, who's
Yeah,
grown up with the poorer family, like they both have very distinctive
yeah,
personalities as well.
yeah,
Keita is a
yeah,
bit calmer, and Ruisei is a bit more intense. And then we kind of also think about their relationship to their father and how they've been kind of molded by their
yeah,
father, both like in terms of like nature genetically, but also the behavior in the house and things like that. But I think we should maybe get into the spoiler discussion
yeah,
now. So again, it's a film that I think pretty much everybody can enjoy. Although again, if you are somebody who only watches very intense films, or somebody who isn't into family dramas and things like that, yeah, maybe then you won't like it. But I think the type of people who watch my channel, you probably, with most of you, would like this one.
yeah, 100%.
So now we could talk about the aesthetic first. With Kotoko, we actually kind of forgot to talk about the aesthetic until near the end. So now we could get it uh, done first, like we usually do. I mean, there's not that much to say about it. It's a very, again, subtle film. Also aesthetically, it has these methodical still shots, and then methodical, very slow camera movement. In terms of color, it's very naturalistic. Everything looks very peaceful, and I think in Korean films of always the surroundings really come to life, all the buildings and the streets and the homes and everything. So I really like that. So, and in that way, he's kind of like Koreeda, that you really pay attention. No, not like Koreeda because he's Koreeda, but like Osu, that you like really pay attention to all the details in the environment as well. And this is just my preferred type of cinematography. Like if I was a filmmaker, this is how I would shoot my films as well. Just put the camera somewhere and in a nice angle, and
Mm.
let everything play out in a peaceful and subtle way, and let the viewer get hooked to the film slowly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The aesthetic. So I think there are two. There's a slight distinction in the coloring and the picturization. So I think with the first family, it's a little bit on the cold side, I would say. If you look at Still Walking, it's it's a bit cold. So it's much more very clean, precise. Of course, little cold, a little distant. So you can feel that right away. But we also associate that kind of aesthetic with sophistication, elite, being elite, uh, you know, being successful materially in a certain way. So you have that, and then when you're introduced to the other family, the the tone and the coloring, it's slightly warm. It's warmer. It's much more akin to what you saw in Still Walking. So you see, obviously, and they're coming from different social circumstances, so most definitely that has to be the case. But that's where you see the warmth, the more clutter, a more kind of almost inviting home. Like you're not going to break anything. Whereas in the first, it's like you're always cautious. You're going to break something. Everything needs to be in its place. Everything needs to be proper and structured, and goes well with the level of discipline the first father wants to maintain and all that. So definitely, but yeah, really a really great aesthetic. I agree with you. Um, why do you? I'm not saying camera movements can't be great, but when these kinds of directors like Ozu and now Koreeda, and they don't move the camera, and it doesn't make a difference. You just get to kind of sit there and you take more in that way. I feel it gives you more chance to take more in. You're not being forced to move around and all that. And I'm not saying when they move around the camera is by force, but I'm just saying it's a different feeling. But I like that feeling. The Koreeda film, I really like that the minimal camera movement. I think that's great. It works really well for the stories he tells.
And we often say about architects' homes that they always look like a home decorating magazine, basically.
Yeah,
Like those, like very kind of boring without any personality, but everything is neat and clean. And
yeah,
in a way, it looks nice, but then at the same time, it really lacks any personality. So I really wouldn't like to live in a home
yeah.
like that. I want some
Exactly.
color in my life and stuff. Yeah.
I think it's also interesting that you can be that in different stages. So I guess this person is also on a journey, and just like you, obviously, yeah. I mean, the performance of Masaharu Fukuyama as Ryota is just mesmerizing. I mean, you just his performance is just so good. It's like in the films, all the performances you don't feel like anyone's acting for one thing. But what a great performance! But I could really connect with uh, this character because the good thing with Koreeda is you have a character that there are things you might find objectionable about what they're doing, even in Still Walking with the father. But what Koreeda does is he slowly opens the world, and you get to see what's behind that. And then even the coldest character or someone who should be objectionable, you start building feeling that empathy for them. But with him too, he's cold, but the whole time you can feel that there's something uh, behind that. But getting back to what you were saying about Architect's Home, I thought it was interesting too that sometimes when you're young and you're aspiring, like you have those chips on your shoulder and you're coming from a maybe less elite background, you have an idea that that is success, and to have the architectural home, and then you've got everything you need, and that's it. And then the next step is to basically have children, and then basically raise the children in the right way, unlike the way you were raised, and discipline them, get them to learn piano right away. The piano, the background is, yeah, like you said, it's Bach, but it's like the Goldberg variation, so it's a very high elite snobby um, music. And yeah, and that's it. And you train them all that, and it's a very much the Asian mindset too, right? You learn these things, you learn how to play the piano, you learn business, you learn how to get ahead in the world, you learn how to compete, and that's it. And now you're on the road to success. And then as you go on that journey, you realize what you're already saying, that, well, that's kind of cold. It actually doesn't have personality. It doesn't have you in there. It's almost a rejection of everything you and everything human, to live this very architecturalized life in all forms. Like you're being an architect in all parts of your life, uh, including your child.
Yeah, and there are lots of these things that you could see as stereotypes of Japanese life. So we have the hardworking father who's obsessed about work and works even in the weekends, and then the piano playing son. Although in the West we of course have this view that, oh yeah, the Asian kids, they are virtuosos when they are like little kids, all of them, even though it's not true that all of them are prodigies and virtuosos. And then the class distinction is very important here as well, like when they go to the poorer family's house at the first time, and Ryota says that this is pathetic,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's like it's so ugly, and like yeah, and yeah, it's interesting. And then we of course see Ryota's own parents later on the film, and yeah, his own father isn't very nice either, and very distant, and he says you need to switch the children immediately. So we see that his parents were pretty toxic as well, and that's probably why he's also very distant emotionally. And we see this cycle like that we have in life, that when you have bad parents, then you will become a bad parent yourself often. And there's this interesting contrast also between the father and the mother, so Ryota and his wife, because the wife is very loving and a nice, more understanding person, and seems like a really good mother. But then we start questioning her as well when she's like crying when they give Keita, the child, to the other family. And yeah, I cannot believe that we are betraying Keita. I feel so bad for him. So these are very conflicted people, all of them, and very flawed people. But at the same time, we for some reason like really understand them and love them, even the Ryota character, even though he's very toxic.
Yeah, and in that sense, it is a very much like his mentor Ozu's films, because as you were talking about the wife Midori, like she's you're in awe sometimes by the level of sacrifice as a result of duty. So it's also a theme that we see in the Japanese samurai films and stuff, right? There's this duty and sacrifice. So he feels like this is his duty, right? His duty is to make his son, especially his son, successful, and he only has one child. To make him successful, and how do you make him successful? Well, you make sure they get piano lessons, they learn how to compete. They get trained to be as much of a virtuoso, in a sense, as much as virtuosity can be trained. And then the wife is just there to take care. But the level of duty and sacrifice, and then that covering at the internal world, because then you think about her while she's in this environment, looks very nice and stuff. You think about the level of her loneliness, because while he's working, she's just sitting there, and it's not just the child care, but she has a one son and stuff like that. So you can't even imagine. Sometimes you're like, the level of loneliness she must feel, and then there's no real regard to feelings. Like it doesn't matter. That's a secondary concern. Even the love you have for a child, you gotta, do what's right, which is at first was like protect the bloodline, and then because he decides that he can't admit that he loves this child despite it not biologically being his, then he comes around with a new workaround thanks to the boss, which is let me get both the kids. And because that poor family, they wouldn't know how to raise a child properly. There's only one proper way to raise a child. So yeah, like lots of interesting things going on.
Yeah, we see this how the poorer family are actually more empathetic, compassionate, and better parents. And of course, we know from research, for example, that even though rich people have money, but they are actually less charitable than poor people. That poor people actually are willing to give more from the less that they have, because they know what it means to have hardships and stuff. And that's kind of what we see here as well, that yeah, the poor people are often more understanding and compassionate, and they actually have better values, because obviously Ryota is all about hard work, and yeah, you need to work hard. You need to be disappointed if somebody is better than you when they are in the piano competition or whatever. But then maybe the more important values are empathy and compassion and wisdom rather than just working your ass off and tiring yourself and being emotionally distant to your family members and not giving them attention and not spending time with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also about that misguiding. In this world, you kind of, if you have that kind of struggle and pain, and clearly he does from his family, he clearly has daddy issues, right, for specific reasons, and then he has decided, and I can relate to that, and I'm sure you can relate to that as well. It's that you decide, maybe, if I go and get this success, that solves that, but it doesn't actually solve anything, right? It won't solve his disappointment or his pain or the rejection he felt or not being understood and all that. It's a form of defiance. Yeah, I'm going to show you who I am, and for me, it's going to be different, and my home's going to be different, and I'm going to reach these heights, and then my son's going to reach even greater heights, and all that. But what is that a solution for? If it's a solution for the problem of heartbreak, it's not a solution. And I think, yeah, that's the great thing in these Koreeda films, is that there are various kinds of heartbreak, just like in Still Walking, and then each person has their own, and you get to learn about each person's, and then you really are grasping for, well, what is the solution, and you often learn something about even yourself, that sometimes maybe I'm trying to solve a problem with something that's not really the answer, and that's kind of part of his journey, right? Which he can't see where he's going wrong. Uh, and in a way, he's very seems to be very headstrong, but he's very much easily manipulated too, right? Because he seems to be very strong, and this is what I want. But then when his father talks about bloodlines, all of a sudden his focus is all on bloodline. Or when his boss says to him, "Well, why don't you just raise both?" He takes that idea on. So he's very much still searching for that, a father himself, while trying to be a father.
And there's this fun scene, like towards the end, when Ruisei goes back to his, like the poor family, but then Ryota goes there, but then the poor family say to Ryota that we can take care of both of them for a while. So they kind of, it's almost like kind of revenge for the fact that the rich guy said earlier that, yeah, I'm gonna take care
Yeah.
of both of them. But I think one
Yeah,
of the most powerful scenes in this film is when Keita like goes away and then Ryota follows him, and then Ryota starts like slowly understanding that, yeah, I've been an awful father, and yeah, maybe I should be better, and then they're kind of reconnecting when they walk there in the kind of park and stuff. So that's a really beautiful moment, and of course this film has I think a really happy ending when both of the families are together, and you start like imagining like what will they do after this. Will they kind of be like one big family together, or whatever? But it shows the power of human connection and honesty, and kind of also of becoming a better person, how powerful that is. So I usually maybe wouldn't want the ending to be like this happy in a way, but I think here it really works, and it's a very beautiful, touching ending.
yeah, and it's like, as you're talking about, even like, yeah, how the film progresses. It's when you were saying the synopsis as well. It's like the thing with Koreeda films is the synopsis always seems so simple, but the film is always surprises you in how much more it is than its synopsis. And I think one part of Koreeda is he's like a composer. He's like sort of a really great composer. Like the way he not only paces, but he places the course of events. He's a really great composer. His films are great compositions. And because not all his biases, like Ryota's biases, are articulated, or the person he's supposed to represent or kind of think he's supposed to represent. They're not all spoken in dialogue, but you implicitly understand that he believes that to not have money and have multiple children is a form of irresponsibility, that they're being irresponsible. They don't actually have the ability to care for these kids. And him saying that later, Yudai saying that later, where it's like, or them saying together, Yudai and his wife Yukari, that's, oh, we can take care of both of them, meaning we have even more to give. I mean, it's not money, and these kinds of training is not all there is to give in raising a child. Now, I also feel like Koreeda, the good thing about him is he's a subtle person, or he has a subtle. He's not saying one is right and one is wrong. I've noticed that he's not saying that. It's almost like that concept yin yang. He's showing the balance of the thing. That one thing alone does not make the other thing. There's a two parts are required. Uh, so he's not just saying, okay, ditch, making sure you can materially provide for your kids and just make sure it's a warm home. I think there are two parts of it, and then also I like how he brings in the child psychology as well, because it's true, when you're young, what your father is doing, the father might think he's being a hero by providing, but as a child, what you find heroic is not the thing that your father may or may not be doing. You might find other things heroic, and so you feel the pain of the parents too when your child thinks of some other man as more interesting or more of a hero than their own father. So there's all kinds of pain and disappointment being explored.
Yeah, and when Ruisei is in the being switched to the architect's home and his toy breaks down, and then Ryota cannot fix it, and that's actually like a very small moment, but at the same time very big moment when we see that Ryota isn't an all capable superhuman or anything like that, but he cannot even fix a small
Yeah,
toy when the poor father could easily do that. That this
yeah,
big architect, famous architect, cannot do that. Such a small thing. Obviously, it's big thing, I think, for his ego. And he, of course, I
yeah,
think says that, I can buy you a new one, but then
yeah,
the kid says that I can just take it to my father and
yeah,
let him
exactly.
fix it. So then, like Ryota sees that, it's not all about money. It's about way more than that. Yeah. And of course, these are very kind of classic themes that have been explored throughout like centuries of literature and art. But these are the type of themes that they will always be relevant in the world, as there are always rich people and poor people, and there are always different classes, even though maybe it shouldn't be like that, but it always seems to be like that. So, but these are such classic themes that you never get tired of exploring.
Yeah, and as you were mentioning, and you also see that there's so much great humor in the film. It's very subtle humor, but it's not meant to be self-serious. When you talk about the film being a drama, it's not all about being self-serious. It's that at times you can see how he's taking himself too seriously, and then it's broken down with these humor, right, of exchanges with the children, because obviously exchanges with children can be quite funny as well, because of how they see the world versus how you see the world, and what they think is important versus what you think is important. So there are a lot of these great um, moments as well. Uh, yeah,
Did you know that Spider-Man is actually a spider? Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
that returns in the end as well. But there's one like really brutal scene, I think, when they are near the river, both of the families, and then Keita talks to Ryota, and he says to Ryota that, do they love me more than you do? And then Ryota says that, they love you more than I do. It's such a brutal scene that you say to the kid that you've raised that, I don't love you that much, and they love you more. Yeah, it's just such a, how can you say that to a child? Like, it's just so awful.
Yeah, Exactly. And I don't, and I'm not even sure that he probably believed that. I think there's like a part of him that believed that at the point, or he was just trying to toughen himself up to, oh, well, this is the reality of the world and this is how we deal with it, uh, kind of thing. And, I'm just preparing for harsh truths, and we're just doing what's like kind of best for everyone, and, taking a cold approach to everything, a distant approach. But, that's, we as the audience can see, well, like, why would you do that? I mean, right.
Yeah, he has the moment of realization when he looks at the camera, at the pictures, and he sees that Keita really loves him as a father, and then Ryota becomes crying and starts crying, and then okay, like we talked about the ending a bit already, but he realizes that he actually cares about Keita more than he thought he did, and he realizes that it's not about blood, but it's about more than that. So I think he is definitely the main center of this film. He is the person who changes the most due to these events. He is the person who has most of these realizations and most of this conflict
Mm-hmm.
in him. I feel like the more other people are a bit more settled with the situation and a bit more understanding and in peace with the situation, but Ryota is the one that is just so conflicted and hurt by the situation.
Yeah, and I really liked what Yudai said to him at one point. He goes, "You never lost at anything. That's why you don't know how others feel." And I think that was great because, yes, clearly, Ryota is like blinded by his success. I'm not saying he didn't work hard, but obviously he had a certain level of talent as well. And then, so if you have talent and you work hard and you succeed, there's a blindness that gets created, right? Where you haven't ever lost, so you don't know what anyone is feeling. So if to him Udai just looks like someone who's just meandering, like he doesn't care about anything, and he's maybe just lazy and not willing to put in the work, but you don't know. But maybe he lost at something, maybe he didn't have that natural talent, and that's a form of loss. uh if you're average at something, well, what do you get when you're average at something? You don't get anything, and so it's a form of loss. And then you have to, like you said, they have to kind of accept and move on in life. Whereas in some ways, when you succeed, as you're mentioning, it's difficult for you to accept things as they are, because you get this idea that, well, you just can overcome with like simple just might and willpower. So even here, it's about willpower. It's about being able to understand the duty and saying, hey, look, that I need to raise my son, so this one can go here regardless of any other considerations. And when we do that, all will be right. And, oh, okay, well, if it's not working out that way, we'll just raise both of them. Like, that family will not feel any loss. So it shows that he's completely disconnected from his feelings, because he cannot uh, understand where someone else is coming from, not his wife, not the other family. And of course, like you said, he is the primary focus, because in a way he is kind of living um, in this in the aftermath of all his failures. Because the thing that gets revealed toward the film is his failures, like how he didn't continue with piano and all these things. And so the film is also about that parental ambition to basically have their kids continually make up for all their failures, and then create all this pressure on the child.
Yeah, it shows kind of the narcissism of being a parent.
Yeah.
I think we often falsely talk about in society that when you are giving life, that you are doing something very altruistic, but you are actually doing something that you yourself want to do. That becoming a parent is actually a very narcissistic thing, and there's so many things that a parent does that is very self-centered and narcissistic. Yeah, you want your kids to study, eat what you want them to eat, do what you want them to do, and you don't let them to become the persons that they want to become. And I think there's this one powerful scene also when Ryota goes to see the woman who switched the babies at birth in
Oh
the
yes,
hospital, and then that woman's boy,
yeah,
her child, like comes and stands in front of her mother that yeah, you shouldn't come here. And so we see there that even these parents who do these bad things and stuff, but they can have such a deep connection with their own children. And I think Ryota maybe realizes in that moment that oh yeah, my connection to my child is very surface level, and that yeah, I'm not a good father, I'm a very emotionally distant father when he sees what another person's child can feel like with their own parents. Yeah.
yeah, you're right. And also that that nurse's home and everything, and that part of the plot, it also helps you understand that when we live in these very siloed ways, there are bubbles that get created around us, and unless we have interaction with the other, we really don't have a place where we can actually think about things and even reflect on ourselves and our actions. He could have easily just continued in his bubble, and that's how the film started, and they're just sitting there, and he's just interviewing to get into the school, and then there's that funny line after, and he's like, oh, where did you come up with that thing to say, and the details that I took you camping? I've never taken you camping. And he's like, well, I learned that in my training class. So they could have very much been in that bubble. He would have kept going to his highly elite schools, the child, and been pressured to play piano, but he wouldn't have learned anything about himself, about life, about other people, and other people's pain and struggle, including the nurses, if it wasn't for this event. So that's also very interesting too, that a form of kind of almost like tragedy and all that stuff kind of can bring people together, so they actually interact and exchange and actually have the bubbles burst a little bit.
And it's also interesting to see the whole thing from the kids' perspective. Like when Ruise is with Ryota and Midori, like when they are in the kitchen table eating, and then Ruise keeps asking Ryota that why not? Why not? And like
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
the
that's
Ryota
true.
doesn't know how to answer it. So the kids kind of find this whole thing very ridiculous and nonsensical that yeah, why can't we just be like the way we were? Okay, we aren't blood maybe, but we are family, we have been family, so who cares about the blood relation and things. And in the end, like when you really think about it, like what does the blood thing actually matter? You should be with people that you actually like, whether they are related to you or not. Like I know from my family that there are many family members that yeah, we are related, but we don't have any type of connection. And then
Yeah.
I've met lots of friends and stuff that I connect with a lot, even though we don't have that family background and stuff. So these are such arbitrary things and stupid things to consider in the end. But for some reason, people just keep on obsessing about these things
Mhm.
until the day they die. And again, if we talk about ethics, I think like adopting a child is way more moral than having your own child, because there are already children in the world that need your help, that are suffering. So why don't you adopt rather than have your own kids biologically? Yeah. Or even with pets, why don't you adopt a dog, and why you always have to get a puppy? Because you could actually reduce suffering in the world if you just didn't go the blood biological way and you just helped creatures that are already here.
Yeah, and that example you're giving is with Ryusei is so interesting as well, because after that exchange, he says that he's like, oh, like that's how I was. So you get, like you said, when you're tying it to that kind of self-absorbed view too. Okay, you have biological children because in a way you have a mindset that uh, you know you're the best thing there is. So there should be more of you in a sense, right? So and seeing coming across with that child, that's he's recognizing is like him. There's one of two things. One thing is that he sees, okay, why is it all about having more of me? Why do I think that the greatest thing to have in this world is more of me? That's the first question. But the second thing is maybe he realizes, but if he's me, and if that was me, I'm not what I would have needed as a father. So he's kind of realizing what he didn't have, and that the answer. So the answer to his own question, because his question, and as we grow up, it's like it's in our psychology, right? Well, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be like that, right? And then you create this thing, and then he's confronted by the fact that the answer he's created does not answer the loss. That's not what he would have needed as a child. By seeing a child that's like him and that's of him in a sense, and him not being able to help that child, he realizes my answer does not answer the pain and the question I had growing up. So it's this realization, like you said, it breaks that self-absorption. It breaks that, like that egoism as well, that you think like you figured it all out and you've solved all the problems, and you've solved all your own problems when you haven't even scratched the surface.
And I think the kind of one of the scenes in the beginning relates to these things when they are in the school where Keita is gonna attend, and then Keita lies to the teachers in the school that my father took me camping, and
Yeah, exactly.
think that then Ryota asks him that why did you lie to them, and because my
Yeah,
teacher said so, whatever it was, and then
yeah,
Ryota was so happy, so he kind of likes that idea of being told what to do, and kind of putting this image of being a good
yeah,
father, even though he isn't, and he's kind of satisfied of having this image, but he doesn't really at this point of the film actually seek like to be a better father. But he's very happy with these very surface level things.
yeah.
And of course, in this film, we also see Midori's mother a couple of times, and she seems to be like a way more empathetic person than Ryota's parents. So we see there the cycle as well, that Midori, who is more empathetic than Ryota, that she maybe had a better upbringing. It was weird for me this week actually, because I saw that actor, that Midori's mother, like in an 80s film from Obayashi. So I saw her when she was way younger,
Oh wow, yeah,
just a couple of days ago. I was like thinking, oh, is that the woman from Like Father, Like Son? Because I
yeah,
watched like Obayashi film and this film back to back. So yeah, it was interesting. Anyway, that was a random side
yeah,
note.
yeah. And she was also in Still Walking, so yeah,
Yeah.
she was the mother. Great actress. But how did you feel at this? Because it's a good thing you said that, because it reminded me to ask you what I wanted to ask you too. So this whole plot, in some ways, it's not exact, but it relates to, because you've had to live in different homes and all that, and then you had the biological father versus the not biological father and all that. So I was always curious the whole time that, how it felt for you watching that film as well, because I'm sure you could relate a lot with the children, maybe what they were experiencing, and even running away. I think you mentioned once you tried to run away from
No,
one
no,
home.
no, I've never ran away. I've never ran
Oh,
away.
okay, okay. Sorry, no, I'm misremembering that.
Yeah. But yeah, I have so many different stages in my life that sometimes I was, again, my father and mother divorced when I was 4, and then I often spent the weekend at my father's, and then sometimes it was like every other year I spent Christmas with my father's, and every other year with my mother and my stepfather. But yeah, I think I always had lots of resentment for my stepfather. Well, it's not necessarily because he wasn't related to me, but more because he was an awful person. And then with my father, well, it's so difficult to say, because sometimes we had a good relationship in a way, but then as he was an alcoholic, so there was so much toxicity there, and then the resentment in my head started building year after year of like, again, for because he was alcoholic and very toxic in some other ways, like self-pitying and kind of controlling in a way and stuff. But yeah, so I've been going from home to home in a way, but it kind of became like a natural thing to me very quickly. So I don't know, it's very different emotionally than I think the experiences in this film.
But like Keita, you're an only child, so did you ever wish like that to be in a home with like other siblings and stuff like that?
Well, not really, and I had like step brothers for a while. So again, my
Oh,
stepfather
okay.
had a son, but we never really had any connection. He was quite a bit older than me, 7 years older.
Okay.
So we had obviously very different interests and stuff because he was so much older. And then my father's girlfriend also had a son who was 2 years older than me, and with him I spent lots of time. But to be honest, I didn't really enjoy it that much as he was a bit older, so he kind of dictated that which games we were playing and which movies we were watching and stuff. So it wasn't that nice.
Sorry, not to delve into personal. I was just curious if there was any parts of that you kind of connected with from your own kind of personal journey. But yeah, okay, yeah, I understand.
Is there anything else we need to mention? I think we got. I mean, the class distinctions we didn't. I mean, talk about them that much. I think they are very important in this film, and they come up all the time. I mean, we talked about how they relate to being a parent, but we didn't talk about them more widely. Is there anything interesting to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's I think things that could be discussed about the class stuff, but yeah, it created. I mean, it was sort of also addressed in the film by the way of how each of them are looking at the solution, right? Ryota's solution is more based on bloodline and legacy and him being successful and his child being successful in the future, whereas the other family really wasn't thinking about any of that, and their focus was really like, hey, the hospital screwed up, here's a time, let's get a good settlement for the lawsuit and get some resources from the hospital. So I think I think it's very but interesting. But yeah, I think the class thing, like you said, it's one of those that's there, and I think that's the hard part with discussing Koreeda films, because sometimes when you discuss those elements, it makes it seem very basic. Like it's almost like you're talking about, oh, okay, there's the classes, but it's just so much more. That's what I'm saying. Like he's like he's a composer. He it's not really about the elements, but it's the whole experience of the film and what you get. And like you said, you reflect on things, you actually think about becoming a better person as soon as any of his films end, but also by being a better person, not just by doing good to others, but having greater empathy for people around you as well, and yourself. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think we can start wrapping it up now. I think we went into most of the important themes. Like we again said, it's a lot about the Ryota character. And while there is the class thing, it's still mostly about, I think, these individual people, their relationships, their family life, rather than class. But the class kind of impacts how they teach their child and how they raise their child and things like that. So even the class element is mostly discussed through family and not like in a very societal way.
And I like that sometimes. It's more about the individual's individual responsibility.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you liked the film. I mean, I knew that you were gonna like this one because
Yeah,
I at this point know that you like these Japanese slice of life films like I do. So,
yeah, absolutely love those. Yeah, I love slice of life.
and I think Tony hasn't seen this one yet, but he's been saying to me that he wants to watch it. So maybe he will watch it soon and then comment on the podcast.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yes, to have him watch it and get his thoughts as well.
And I know he likes Korea. I like in general. He has seen some of his other films.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, let us know what you think of the film. And now we just have to mention the next two films that we will talk about. So it will be an interesting combination. So we will actually go back to Korea already in a couple of weeks' time. So we will do Maporoshi, his feature debut film, which is quite different to Like Father Like Son, I would say, although many things are same, but plot-wise and theme-wise, it's a bit different, but it's a really beautiful film, and I haven't seen it in a few years, so I'm really looking forward to watching it again, as I've forgotten much about it. And it actually will be the last Japanese film for quite a while. I think the next one is The Sword of Doom, like in December. So
oh
I'm
wow.
I'm kind of sad that there will be no Japanese films because I've been watching Japanese films so much anyway. I didn't realize when I was doing the schedule that I didn't have any Japanese films for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to the next round. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize either because I just go by the film. So yeah, I didn't realize you haven't picked any Japanese films for the rest of the year. That's interesting.
But then also we will talk about a really difficult and dense film. So it's Bellatar's Werkmeister Harmonies, which is my favorite Bellatar film, and Altaz will see it in the cinema. So that will be a great way to see that film for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very excited. I'm excited. Yeah, the BFI is showing it, and I think it's going to be the new 4K restoration. So yeah, can't wait to see that. And they're doing a Bellatar retrospective, so a lot of Bellatar films. Uh, but I'm going to go see the three biggies because that's all I
And,
could manage to schedule in.
and I will see it. The Criterion print in the Criterion channel. So yeah.
Oh yeah, very nice.
So this
Yeah,
will be my third time watching it. So yeah. But yeah, that will be very difficult, but very interesting as well. So
I'll get that high you always talk about. I'll walk out of BFI after watching it, and then I'll feel like I'm floating in the air. Oh, I just saw a Bellatar film in the cinema, and then you float in the air.
I mean, after Satan Tango, especially 7.5 hours,
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes because it's so long.
yeah. I mean, you get it. You get good intermissions. So it's not like you sit there 7.5 hours straight. So you do get a little bit. You get two intermissions, so get a bit of a break. But
And tomorrow you have the Ceylan films.
yeah, yeah. Tomorrow is about dry grasses. Yeah,
And
and
I'll
that
be
I think
watching
is
it
like
soon
three
as
and a
well.
half hours or something like that, right? It's over
Yeah,
3 hours.
yeah. I don't think it's quite 3.5, but it's over 3. I watched the interview with Ceylan from the Criterion channel for it. And I'm gonna watch the film soon as well as I now have Criterion channel again. So.
Yeah, Chelan is one of those where you just want to sit there, like you don't want to leave his worlds when you go see his film. So you could sit with so long. So I think the length won't matter at all for his film.
But anyway, look out for Maboroshi and Werkmeister Harmonies. It will be a
Yeah,
interesting double bill. But yeah, thanks for watching this episode. Let us know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Don't drink Coke at all. Sayonara and arigato gozaimashita.